My name is Mia. I'm currently living at my parents' home. I'm already 30 years old, but I have no intention of moving out for now. The reason is that 10 years ago, I lost the ability to move from the waist down, and since then, I haven't been able to work outside the home. Living at my parents' home is because my mother, Karen, and my brother, Jason, are there. They can help me out in times of need. I felt like a burden, but when I showed my guilt, Jason would say, "I'm happy to be relied on upon you, sis. And we're family, so lean on us." The reason I became bedridden, unable to move without assistance, was due to a certain accident. When I was in a car driven by my father, it was rear-ended by a truck. At that time, my father passed away, and I was seriously injured. It was a sudden event that devastated me and my family. The driver who caused the accident was arrested, but that didn't bring my father back. My mother was the only one who acted strong next to me and Jason in our despair. However, I didn't know until now that my mother appeared strong because she didn't love my father. 10 years after the accident, I was working from home using my computer. Jason supported me all this time, but when he wasn't around and I tried to ask Mother for something, she would make a terrible sarcastic remark like, "Do it yourself if you can stand." Oh, right, you can't. She wouldn't even prepare my lunch and often left me alone to go out. I resolved myself to the fact that my mother probably didn't want to take care of her adult daughter anymore, so I decided to hire a helper. The helper who came was a young woman named Amy. She was very kind and cheerful. Her warmth was a relief to me, who had been treated coldly by my mother. However, my mother showed an unpleasant attitude towards Amy, saying, "It's sad you have to spend your youth caring for a bedridden person. And, can't you earn money without doing this?" I couldn't stand her mocking Amy, so I retorted, "Any job is respectable, at least more respectable than a mother who can only be sarcastic to others." Angered by my words, my mother left the house saying, "You're so nosy." My mother, who mocked Amy's job, had relied on my father's earnings in the past and didn't even work now. My father probably thought he couldn't leave the house in her care. He had written a will when he passed away, stating that the house would be inherited by me. For the past 10 years, I've been managing this house, paying property taxes, utility bills, and electricity bills. Honestly, if I could go live alone without worry, I would have sold my parents' house and lived alone long ago. I'm sorry, Amy. My mother is like that with everyone. She didn't stand out much when my father was alive because he would scold her for such behavior. I apologized for my mother's attitude. Amy just smiled brightly and said, "There are all kinds of people, so it's okay. I feel energized just being thanked by you and the others I care for." And she raised her arms, making a muscle-flexing pose, trying to make me laugh. She helped me in many ways as a helper. Originally, her job included not just caring for me, but also cleaning my room and preparing meals, which she did without complaint. My mother only cooked for herself and didn't prepare meals for me or Jason, so Jason cooked for me when he came back from work. I was worried he was getting tired. So I asked Amy to prepare meals, and she cooked dinner for the two of us. Jason cried when he ate a home-cooked meal after a long time. Seeing Jason crying while eating and saying, "Delicious, delicious," both Amy and I couldn't help but laugh in confusion. My mother usually comes back late at night or in the morning, so she wasn't home that day. "I'm always sorry, Amy," I apologized. "There's so much to do." Amy reassured me. "It's okay. I get paid for it after all." Since there's a lot of work and her hours are long, I pay her accordingly. But I didn't want to take it for granted, so I always said thank you every time she did something for me. Jason did the same thing, thanking her after every meal with "delicious" and "thanks for cooking." Gradually, I noticed a sweet atmosphere developing between the two of them. So I decided to ask Jason about it when Amy wasn't around. "Hey, Jason, do you like Amy?" I asked. Jason, who was drinking coffee, choked and then blushed red.
"How did you know?"
"Well, it's obvious just watching you two. Besides, you both act like it's mutual. Aren't you dating yet?" Jason nodded shyly. I thought about how innocent they were and came up with a plan. I suggested to Jason to ask Amy out on a date when he was off. Of course, if both Jason and Amy aren't around, I have no one to take care of me, so I reluctantly asked my mother. Hey, Mom, could you help with my meals and such, just for the day after tomorrow? I asked. My mother frowned deeply. Can you stop already? I don't want to take care of someone as needy as you. Her words stung, but she'd only taken care of me for about 3 years after the accident. Still, I was grateful for that care. She also helped me with transportation to medical appointments for a while after the accident, and I was thankful for that too. However, for the past few years, she hadn't taken care of me and goes out almost every day to have fun. I don't think I deserve to be spoken to like that. What about the usual helper? Why don't you ask her? She's off this coming day. I couldn't tell her that it was for Jason and Amy's date, as she would probably just tell me to cancel it, so I just said that. Huh? That helper is useless. Actually, you're even more useless than her. Can't you just disappear from in front of me? What do you mean by that? Confused by her words, my mother clicked her tongue in irritation. I mean it. I don't want you in this house anymore. A parasite that costs money for medical visits and other things. Just get out. Mom, do you really think that? I am the registered owner of this house and have been paying for its upkeep. Yet my mother called me a parasite. Perhaps she thought Jason was the one paying for the house. Even though she knew I inherited the house, maybe she forgot since it was 10 years ago. I don't know what kind of misunderstanding she has, but being told to leave by my own mother made my affection for her crumble. If she wants me to leave that badly, then I will. I have no intentions of living any longer with a mother who doesn't contribute to the house expenses, constantly takes money for her outings, gets scolded by Jason, and never reflects on it. Living with someone who forgets gratitude is nothing but painful. Understood. I'll leave this house as soon as I'm ready. When I said this, my mother left with a pleased smile. I decided to have a different helper come over the day after tomorrow. Thinking that my mother, who definitely doesn't want to care for me, would be away, I called the real estate agent to get the house appraised on that day. The agent, a friend of my father's since I inherited this house, visited and suggested places where I could live comfortably even after moving. So I decided to move to a facility. I was told that my annual income could afford a high-class facility. I had never considered moving because I had my parents' house, but I was surprised to learn that some facilities has residents around the clock. They even have jacuzzis and restaurants inside. I, being fully conscious and wanting to enjoy life despite needing assistance, didn't hesitate to start the procedure to move into that facility. I shared this plan with Jason, who had successfully confessed to Amy during their date. Jason supported my decision.
I think it's a good idea. I was thinking there is a limit to what we can do for you at home. If it's a place where you can truly get the help you need, selling this house and moving there is fine. I can manage since I'm working.
However, what concerned me was our mother. When I mentioned it, Jason's expression turned troubled before he spoke.
You know, Susanna, I think it might be better to cut ties with Mom now.
Why?
Actually, Mom has been meeting a man whenever she goes out. I got curious and hired a detective agency. Turns out she's been dating this man for 15 years.
Wait, hold on. 15 years ago? Wasn't that when Dad was still alive? I was shocked. My mother had been betraying my father since then. Suddenly I remembered something from 10 years ago. Unlike Jason and me, Mom didn't shed a tear and took care of the paperwork. I thought she was just being strong. But what if she wasn't sad at all? What if she had found Dad burdensome while she was dating another man? The thought made me feel sick. What kind of thoughts did she have, living in a house with us and Dad? I wish she had just left the house right after Dad had passed away and disappeared from my life with her affair partner. I asked Jason about his plans.
I can find an apartment for myself pretty quickly.
Neither of us wanted to breathe the same air as our mother anymore, so we quickly proceeded with the arrangements and started moving. The day after Jason and I moved out, we received a call from Mom. Hold on, I agreed for you to leave, but I didn't hear about Jason. Jason isn't here. Who will pay for the house? She probably thought all along that Jason was the one paying for the house. Mom, listen, I'm the one who inherited this house. I've been paying for it, so I decided to sell it because I'm leaving. Huh? How can a bedridden person like you earn money? You're always just cooped up in your room, tapping away on the computer, right? These days, if you can use a computer, you can earn money without leaving home. I started working from home 10 years ago. The president of the company I worked for since high school had always taken an interest in me. When I told him I couldn't come to work anymore due to the accident and was resigning, he came to my house and proposed establishing a subsidiary company specialized in online business. The main task was to develop an online store and manage it. Initially, it started as an internet-specific department, and all interactions were conducted through remote work. Then, the department expanded into a subsidiary, handling not only the parent company's work but also discussions with other companies about web project development. During this process, my annual income reached $300,000. I've sold the house, so please leave by the end of this month. If you continue to stay here next month, it'll be considered illegal, and I'll report it to the police. Wait a minute, you're being so stubborn. Who was it that suddenly told me, unable to work, to leave the house? I have no intention of holding back with you, Mom. I said this and then hung up the phone. Afterwards, the call from my mother kept coming, but I decided to leave them unblocked out of curiosity about our next move. All my important company communications are done via computer, so I turned off my smartphone during the week. The persistent calls from my mother never ceased. The voicemails left by my mother allowed me to predict her current state. Apparently, she thought that by kicking me out, she would save money on things like hiring helpers and other expenses. Mother had always assumed that Jason was paying for the house, thinking that the money spent on me would now be given to her by Jason. However, in reality, I was the one paying for the house, and I was its owner. Jason also moved out with me, which disrupted her plans. Despite her situation, it was my mother who had kicked me out of the house, and I saw it as just desserts for her actions. A month passed when my mother desperately tried to contact me, and the move-out date arrived. "This is my house," she claimed while illegally occupying it. So the real estate agent promptly reported her to the police and she was evicted. During that time, she assaulted a police officer, resulting in charges of obstruction of justice. I thought she should just go to her boyfriend of 15 years, but Jason revealed,
I found out that Mom's boyfriend is actually married. He's quite wealthy and got married 8 years ago.
"What? He married another woman while he was dating Mom?"
Probably for the money.
I felt nauseated by the rotten nature of my mother and her affair partner. Jason continued,
I never thought our mother could be so awful. So I told his wife everything and gave her plenty of evidence. They will likely face a lawsuit for damages from his wife. Both of them deserve it for what they've done.
Jason and I decided to have no further contact with our mother. A year passed while ignoring my mother's insistent calls. The fact that she still occasionally contacted me suggested she could pay for her phone bills, but then the calls started coming from public phones. The voicemail said, "Please help me, I'm in debt. It's all because you kicked me out of the house. If you feel guilty, lend me $100,000. How presumptuous of her. She seemed to have forgotten that she was the one who kicked me out. There's no way I would lend her money. A week later, she cried, "Help me," in serious trouble. "If this continues, I'll be under surveillance forever, forced to work." I remembered when I cried and asked for help, she said, "Stand up and deal with it yourself." So now, when she seeks my help, I've decided not to assist her. After that, the calls from my mother stopped. Jason, who occasionally checked on her, told me the reason.
Mom's affair partner's wife, furious, asked her influential father to punish them. They are forced to work at a company under his control, under surveillance to ensure they pay their dues. They evaded this for years, but were recently caught. Now, after their work at the company, Mom is made to do housework at the wife's house along with other helpers, all under surveillance.
Upon hearing the current situation of my mother, I couldn't help but shiver. For my mother, who never worked and only did the bare minimum at home, this must be a tough life. But I think it's a fitting consequence. I decided not to concern myself with her anymore. Instead, I'm more interested in Amy and Jason's wedding. They started living together a year ago, and Jason proposed a month ago. I initially declined to attend their wedding, citing my physical condition, but Jason insisted.
Please come, Susanna. You're like Cupid for me and Amy. It won't be the same without you.
I couldn't help but cry at his words. Realizing I have such a wonderful family, I felt incredibly happy.